I used to run a marketing agency. I had no intention of ever running a marketing agency. I started off organising events, small events, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I ended up working at some different agencies, and before I knew it, I was ending up in quite senior roles in one of these agencies, and without even thinking about it, I became managing director, and it freaked me out a little bit because the idea of becoming managing director wasn't something I'd planned. And I wasn't ready for it. And I'm sure at some point you guys will have heard of something called imposter syndrome, and the idea that actually maybe we're not quite good enough for the jobs that we end up in front of us. And that's what happened to me at the time. And it was a little bit scary for me. And it was a great job and I loved it. But actually, I think if I'd had it in my plan as something I was going to aim for, it would have been something I could have enjoyed the experience a lot more. So I left that agency a few years ago, and that time I had a plan. I decided that I wanted to help other people work out what it is they wanted to do with their career. So I now work with people in various types of companies and different industries on career coaching and working out development plans for their team. So what I want to do today is just go through some of the things that I discuss with my clients. So you can have a little bit of a mini coaching session this morning and hopefully understand a little bit more about what you could be doing, so you don't have to have that fear factor of suddenly finding yourself in a scenario that maybe you weren't thinking about, and actually be aiming and achieving what it is that you actually wanted in the first place. So 12 is the number of job changes that we have, and the tenure at any one role has now dropped for 4.6 years to 4.2 years. So how many of you have been in your roles for under 4 years? And how many of them been in them for over 4? Yeah. So we've only got a few, so well done for sticking it in those roles. But yeah, it tends to be that we tend to stay in roles for 4 years. And it might be that you don't change companies. It's not to say that actually that's leaving companies necessarily, but actually your roles will change quite often. So we go from this environment where long ago we used to have a lot less job changes. And that's kind of how a lot of our personal development plans at work have been set up, that actually you just keep improving in that one role, and they often don't think about what the next role is. So how many of you in this room have some kind of personal development plan or review with your boss? Okay, about half of you. Okay, so we're going to touch on some of the things that hopefully might be included in your personal development plans anyway, and some of you who don't have anything, then this might be quite a good starting point. But the average person, and they take average, and I'm not sure who these people are, work 36 hours per week. And they are basically, the way it works out is 46, and this is obviously average because everybody sleeps a different amount of time, but that's 46% of your waking day is spent at work. So who of you in this room works for more than 36 hours a week? Pretty much everyone. So for those people that work 60 hours a week, which can be quite common in this kind of role, that's 75% of your waking day is spent working. And I'm sure you're like, yeah, I know. It feels like 100% most of the time, right? So for me, it's really important that you actually really enjoy what you're doing, which sounds obvious, but it is super important. But you also need to remember that it's not necessarily what we want to be doing now, it's that stepping stone to what we want to be doing in the future as well. So thinking about why people leave jobs, well, lots of people think it's down to money, but the actual reality is that only 12% of people leave jobs for money. Now, obviously, ask for money, get more money if you can, but most people actually leave because they find something that they want to do better. But actually, one of the biggest reasons people leave is because they're boss. So hopefully there's not too many of the bosses in the room. And actually, we can be honest here that actually there's sometimes we just need to address certain things. I know that's been covered off in a couple of the other sessions today as well. But I wanted to make the point here that it's not always about money that we move jobs, and it's actually about saying, no, we want to do something different, and we want to be in a better place, and we want to enjoy what we're doing a little bit more. How many of you do have kind of proactive elements of your role where actually you've got to think about a new plan, maybe a little bit more of an improvement in a process or anything like that? Is anybody that has to kind of do proactive elements? Yeah. And how often do you find they're the bits that end up getting pushed further and further away? Possibly you were in your time management session earlier about procrastinating on those other bits. So it's a similar thing with our career. If we're in our job every single day and everything's kind of fine, we don't really think about necessarily what the next step is. And actually, therefore, it just gets further and further away. And it's not necessarily saying I'm unhappy in my job, And in fact, if you're not unhappy in your job, it's still a perfect time to think about it, because you can think about all the things that you do like about your job, but you can think about what you want for your next challenge. So I normally set my clients the challenge of doing 15 minutes a day of something to do with your future self, your future career. So it could be that it's actually thinking about what things you care about, whether or not it's the purpose discussions from earlier as well, whether or not it's actually reading something. I love TED Talks. I'm a massive TED Talk fan. So actually, I spend my 15 minutes a day mainly watching TED Talks that actually I think might help me when I'm speaking to my clients. But actually, it could be 15 minutes spent journaling, 15 minutes actually talking to somebody in a different industry that maybe you want to go and be a PA in that industry. So giving yourself that little task of 15 minutes a day, a bit like keeping the doctor away, actually will stop you getting to the point in your career where you really don't like your job, because you're always then doing something little that will help you get that little bit further. And there's few people that can't find 15 minutes. And it doesn't have to be 15 minutes in one block. It could be 15 minutes on your commute or something. And it could just be a couple of small little blocks of time when you're making a cup of tea or something like that, that you use that time proactively to think about what's the next thing. What's the next thing you want to do? So does anybody know who this is? Stephen King, yes. So Stephen King tried 30 times to get his books published. It took 30 times for him to get Carrie published. And it was thankfully his wife that kept saying, do it, do it, do it, keep pushing. And this guy, who you probably know because the words are actually on the screen, 1,000 times he had his recipe refused before a restaurant decided to accept it. And so he didn't actually launch the company until he was 65, I think it was. So there's a guy that had a plan, as with Stephen King, that knew what they wanted to do, and they just kept pushing for it. And they kept trying and trying and trying. And that's what we need to kind of establish is, one, what is it sometimes we actually want to do? Because that's one of the biggest questions I quite often have from people is, I don't know what the next step is. But for those of you that do know, it's about persevering, because actually, if we know what we want and we set a goal, it's far easier. So have you ever tried to watch anybody play football without goals on a pitch? You can't do it. You can't play games like that without knowing where you're aiming for. And it's the same with your career. If you have a goal, you've got something to aim towards. If you don't have a goal, you're just running around a pitch. You're never going to succeed in anything. So the 10 points that we mentioned, so don't just be, is the philosophy we have and the mindset we have at No More Ifs or Buts. So the first one is dig deep and dream. And I said this is this is the tough one for most people. So the reason we get you to do that is, as I said, if you don't know where you're aiming for, you're not going to be able to get any further or any closer to it. So I've put up on the screen here lots of different coaching questions. What's your current biggest problem or challenge? What would be the impact if things don't change? So if you did sit in this job every single day for the next 15 years, what would happen then? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What's the impact of that? Also, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? That's a really good question to really push yourself that little bit further. So as Andy was saying about what would you do in that scenario if you wanted to speak to your father about something, well, actually think about what you would want to do, and then let's try and get you to do that. So if you know that actually if you had no risk of failure, or if money was no object, actually you really wanted to work for this particular company, it might be a charity, for example, and you know the salary is not going to be great, but actually that's what you want to do. Okay, well, let's have that in mind. Let's know what it is that you want to do, and let's find something that works on the way. And if we know what we're aiming for, then we've got a chance of getting there. And be open to opportunities. So when we are in quite reactive roles, we are spending a lot of time firefighting, very, very busy, doing lots of stuff. As I said, when you're trying to be proactive, when you're trying to find new opportunities, it can be really tough. And also, as I said, if anybody's got the imposter syndrome part that I often have, often you sometimes sit there and say, well, no, that's not for me. No, that's too big. and banishing that word can't, actually, if we're open to it and occasionally we say yes, it's amazing what things happen. So when I left my agency, I used to do pitches. I had to go and present to clients, but I'd never probably spoken to a room of more than about 10 people and a pitch. And it wasn't my favourite bit of the job. I liked doing the client management, but I didn't really like doing the presenting bit. And within 4 months of setting up my company, I had started having people saying, oh, will you come and talk at my event? Will you lecture at a local university? And before I knew it, I was speaking to a room of 250 people within a few months of knowing that that was the bit about my job that I didn't like. But by thinking, well, I've got nothing to lose, what's going to happen? If I just say yes occasionally, you never know where it takes you. And so being open to those opportunities when things actually get put in front of you, you don't even have to try for those. They're the things that have been put in front of you as opportunities, but sometimes we dismiss them because we don't think that we're necessarily the right person, or we don't think that we're good enough, or we don't think it's for us. And actually, I'd say, what is the harm in trying? What's going to really happen if you try it and you don't like it? Niggles are natural. So we often said we sometimes get a bit scared about things. We don't like change, right? Change is a little bit scary. Change can be make us feel nervous. Some people thrive on it, and that's amazing. Those people are great. If you can thrive on change, even better. But for those people where it's a little bit scary, that's okay. And the idea of potentially changing your career or taking a step into a different company or a more senior role can be quite intimidating. And that bit of scariness is sometimes the thing that actually holds us back. And it's the thing that makes us go, no, no, no thank you. I'll pass on that. But it's okay to feel doubt. You don't have to feel confident in every single thing you do. Fake it till you make it. I'm sure you've heard of that phrase before. Actually, there's nothing wrong with that sometimes, because actually just putting yourself into a scenario where actually you're just saying, I know that I'm going to be a bit nervous, but that's okay. I can feel nervous about something, but I know that it's not going to be that bad. Treasure your time. So this is a really tough one. I know how busy you are, and as I said, I used to run an events agency, and that was really, really busy in terms of time, and you had a fixed point in time that everything had to be done for. So there was no delaying deadlines. There was no saying, I'll do that next week for you. It had to all be done by the time the event went live. And that's a tough environment to work in, so I understand what it's like when you don't have enough time. And so what I would say is use that time wisely. So I know some of you might have been in the time management session earlier and thinking about practically how you can use your time, but think about it in terms of your career. You know, if you know that actually this is the perfect time in your career, for example, to go and work in a different country. You haven't got a mortgage, you don't have kids maybe, or maybe this is a time when the kids have gone away and maybe that's the time to go and work in a different place. Or if you've always wanted to set up your own business, is this the right time to do it? So think about time in terms of your career as well, and think about, okay, when's the right time for me to do things? And if we spend too long waiting for the right time, it might not happen, but at least knowing the kind of things that would mean that we'd stop doing something actually might mean that we're more likely to push ourselves. There's Google X is a company that got set up, and it's now actually called X. It's a bit confusing. But their mission is essentially to solve some of the world's biggest problems. They've got huge, huge problems they've got to solve. But what I love is on their website, they say that their mission is to prove something's impossible. So rather than start with going, how can we make something happen, they start with saying, how can we show that it's impossible for us to do that? And actually, by looking at it that way, you can use your time a little bit more effectively by saying, well, no, I can definitely do it. There's a way of doing things. I also a big believer of celebrating. So we have champagne moments really regularly in my house. We have a constant bottle of Prosecco or Cremant or champagne in our fridge, depending on the level of celebration it is. And we get disappointed if we don't get to celebrate something at least once a week. So judge me how much I'm drinking there. But the idea being that we don't often celebrate those small little wins. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the promotion or the pay rise. It can be the great feedback somebody gave you that day. Or it can be that you just felt really proud of doing something you haven't done before. But we forget those champagne moments And actually, the more we remind ourselves that we do positive things every day, or the blessings that we talked about in the last session, actually we get to enjoy the joy in the journey. So sometimes when it is really tough and it's really hard work and we can't think about that next stage in the career because it just feels so far away, celebrating those champagne moments gets us slightly closer there. It gets us to the point where actually we get to feel like we're making progress. We get to drink champagne or whatever your chosen drink is, but celebrating them and making a point of saying, this is a champagne moment and I'm going to enjoy it. And you can find the joy in it. You, oh you is the next one. So we have this focus constantly on other people. We're in the job, right, of helping other people. That's what we do. That's our entire role. But as we were saying about helping other people, you've got to help yourself first. So the analogy of putting your mask on a plane, oxygen mask on, before putting it on other people, you've got to help yourself first. So actually, you focusing on how happy and confident and comfortable you are in your career, and therefore what's the next stage of that, it's going to mean that you're going to be far better supporting other people. And if you know that in your career, the next stage is you want to go to this level job, or you want to change companies, or you want to change industries, or set your own company up, or do something different, you're going to absorb so much more from the company and the job that you're in at the moment, because you're going to know what it is that you need to be able to get you to that next job. So the more you know what you want from the future, it doesn't mean that you're taking the eye off the ball for where you are at the moment. It means you can take even more from that, but you can learn it whilst you're working. And so you can actually focus on your development whilst you're in your role. Search out support. Who here has kind of a accountability or buddy at work that somebody they can go and talk to? It's not necessarily their best friend, but somebody that they feel like they can go and have some quite kind of pragmatic conversations with. Brilliant. Okay, that's good. So when we do stress workshops, we try and always tell people to have a stress buddy. It's that person at work, and it's the same with your career, that actually is there to say, what have you done on your career first? What have you done now? Have you done what you said you were going to do? And that's what I do quite often in a role as a coach, is I see my clients once a month and I say, right, you said you were going to do that last month. Have you done it? And if not, why have you not done it? What can we do to make sure you do it this month? But there's no reason you necessarily need to have somebody external to do that. You can have somebody at work to do that with you, or a friend. But you want to make sure it's somebody that hasn't got too much of a vested interest in your personal development. You've got to have someone that's not quite got the biases that potentially a partner might have or a family member might have. But find people that maybe have done the job that you want to do, people doing that job at the moment. If you want to set up your own business, find somebody that set up their own business and ask them how it went. Ask them if they can talk to you occasionally and keep you on the right track. If you change industry and that's your goal, actually, who's working in that industry now that maybe you can go and talk to and find support from them? What have we got next? Oh yeah, so 99% agree that coaching delivers benefits to the individuals and organisation from the CIPD. And that is because when we're talking to other people, coaching is around goals. It's about setting what your clear goals are. If you know where you're aiming, you've got a chance of getting there. If you don't know where you're going, as I said, you're just wandering around the playing fields. You've got no chance of making any progress. But actually, if you know what that goal is, and having somebody that's accountable every month to help you get there, no wonder it's 99% effective. Trust your talents. So we were saying if you're in these roles, and particularly for those of you that have been in these roles for over 4 years, you're going to be good at your job. So actually, if you remember what you're good at and you remember what you enjoy, you remember what you like, you can take some of that and put that into your career goal. But think about it. Have you ever done, do you know what a SWOT analysis is? Yeah, okay, most people know, it's great. So SWOT analysis, for those that don't know, quite often it gets done on businesses or on projects. And you have to come up with the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And you do that on a business or on a project. But how many of you have ever done a SWOT analysis on yourself? 2 people. Good work on those 2 that have done. That's what I challenge you to do after today. Do a SWOT analysis on yourself. Think about the things that you're strong at, things you're weak at. There's a great book called Strengths Finder as well, which is something that you can do a quiz, and it gives you some ideas in terms of the kind of strengths you have. And I'm a big believer of focusing on those strengths and trying to utilise those more than necessarily worrying too much about those weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, but let's utilise those strengths. But actually, the most important bit of that is the opportunities and the threats. So actually, what opportunities are out there for you in your career? Because we all probably have an opportunity. It's just a case we don't necessarily always think about it. So if you sit and write yourself a SWOT analysis, and you do that every, say, 6 months, you're going to be thinking about your career and thinking about the opportunities that might be there for you to say yes to, or to be a little bit brave for. Beat the blocks, and another way we always say is breathe and believe as well. We get very regularly, we can get freaked out by things that are put in front of us. But like any good goal setting, actually, you go round them. You jump over them, you go under them, you move past them. If you know what that goal is, you work towards it. If you just sit there behind the wall, behind the block, you're not going to keep moving at all. And the final thing is engaging environment. So where the is having the kind of the positive anchors around you that make you feel happy, but actually thinking that's one of the important things in our goal setting is how are we doing that for ourselves? Are we setting our goals in a place that is a very rushed environment that we're not going to be able to take anything from? Are we giving ourselves that little personal review every month or so to say, what am I doing? What is it I want to do going forward? And giving yourself the space to think, this is my time. This is the time I get to spend on my career development. Or is it once a year you take yourself away for a weekend and you put yourself in a lovely little cottage by the sea, and that's the weekend you think about what it is that I want to do with my career development, and you plan out something from there. But making sure you do it in an environment that feels positive to you can help with the impact of that. So just to recap then, they're the 10 points that we get to when we're working with clients to help you identify and understand what it is that your what your goals are going to be by using the Don't Just Be 10-point plan. So as I said, what I'd urge you to do after today is think about your SWOT analysis, think about what it is that you want from your career, thinking about those coaching questions from the beginning. There we go. Thank you very much, everyone.